Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Outreach with Reggie. Now, I know it's been some time, but a lot of personal things been going on, both professionally and personally, that has, been put in the crossfire. And with spaces of darkness comes light. When times where you feel lost, it takes moments, takes community, takes healing. And then you slowly find yourself again. And that's where I was. So I apologize for my absence, but it perfectly fits within today's message. This episode is about healing as resistance. Now, what does that mean? This particular episode is going to be to my fellow African Americans. This message is for us, for those who have carried generations of struggle, resilience, and survival. Too often we are asked to be strong without being allowed to be vulnerable, to keep moving without being given the space to rest, to pray, to be, without having being offered the access to care. But healing is not a luxury for us. It is a necessity to heal. And every time we care for our minds, our hearts, our bodies, and our spirits, we are engaging in resistance because the systems around us were not built for us to thrive nor rest, and yet we continue to claim both. So today I want to explore healing, not as a weakness, but as strength, not as selfish, but as survival, and not simply as survival, but as a revolutionary act of love for ourselves and for the community that we participate in and subscribe to. So stay tuned for another episode of Outreach with Reggie. Starts now. Now, for this first segment, I'm going to go into why healing matters. Because in our community, healing has always been layered with complexity. We were always taught to be strong, to endure, to push through, if you will. And while strength is valuable, unspoken pain can be a very heavy burden to bear because silence can be costly. Thinking about it from the generation before, I always thought about the man who drunk himself to sleep on the street. Or I even think about family members who I know who picked up smoking or drugs as a way to conform or a way to deal with the day to day. My grandfather, who I love dearly, Joe Boyd, rest his soul. I watched him. As great as a man he was definitely a smoking drinker, and he coped. Never around me though. But he too has had his strife and vices. But I say that within every vice that we have to identify the source. Why do we lean on the things we lean on to? And oftentimes enough, it's a way to cope. Does it make it right? Not necessarily, but it brings a deeper conversation to be held at the forefront of what does it mean to heal. Now, the data makes this clear about what it looks like within our community. Only 25% of African Americans seek mental health treatment, compared to 40% of white Americans. And those who do seek care, only 1 of 3 Black adults who need mental health services actually receive them. Further point, nearly 10% of African 10% of Black individuals have reported needing but not receiving mental health care. Double the rate of the general population. And we can all recognize this quote for the older generation and for the generation right before us is what happens at this house stays at this house. And I often think about that time a lot of time because, well, what happens at the house that has to stay? Why don't we ever speak about those things that causes such a discomfort or discourse at any family get together, that being Thanksgiving or Christmas? Oftentimes enough, why one family member is quite distant from the others, and it's only when they explode or right when the traumatic experiences of seeing that other family member that they're reminded constantly about the event that occurred, that being any form of abuse, any form of embarrassing moments, infliction, all those things bundled up in a bow. And they're repeatedly reminded by these things. You have to take in consideration that whatever happened in that house, because it's locked within the memories of that house and no one speaks of it, and no one, almost as if it's a dare for you to say anything about it, it stares you up inside, bottles you in, and it's right into, like soda, you shake it up just enough, it explodes. I remember this last week or a couple weeks ago as I've been on the self discovery on my own personal healing, realizing that a lot of stuff that I had to endure within the foster care system and even within my own family at a point in time began to start to show up in my adulthood in ways I never expected. I say these things because unkept or unthought, unknowingly carrying trauma, and you push it aside, and when you choose to use escapism as a way to cope or manage, it's like putting it away. It's like putting your laundry away to the side. And you do it for so long until you see a big pile on the other side of your bed. After a while, at first you're able to hide it. And then it starts to pile up through actions, through choice of words. And through a sequence of things that you do not expect things to happen, but it shows up. And when it shows up, the first question goes into where does it come from? But you know where it comes from. You've been piling it away for so long. It showed up right in your face. And like this soda machine is ready to explode. And you're not careful, you'll explode on the very ones that had nothing to do with the purchase of the soda. Or or the quote I love to use is, if you're not careful, you'll bleed on people who didn't have anything to do with cutting you. Now, what does that mean for our youth? Well, statistics show us for our youth, the crisis is heartbreaking. The area of suicide now is the third leading cause of death for Black Americans, ages 10 to 24. Think about that. 10 years old. Black boys and young men are especially high risk with suicide rates 4 times higher than their female peers. And because we often lack access to preventative care, Black Americans seek mental health help in emergency rooms at nearly twice the rate of white Americans. That means we are showing up in crisis instead of being supported before things reach a breaking point. Numbers are not just statistics, they represent the daily struggles of our community. And they remind us that healing is not an option, it's a necessity and a survival. So I'll divulge you into three truths about healing in this next segment. Starting off with the first one, and that is healing is survival. As I explained to you, the pressures, not just of, I know the last segment we talked about young men and black men in general, or black youth, but it expands far beyond gender. It's what we subscribe to, what we accepted as culturally right or social, our within our social climate. It is what we chase, right? It is the very things that are that we desire, and all desires aren't bad. Let me dismiss that right away. Aren't desires All desires are not bad. It's the heart of those desires, and it's the root, the seed of those desires that we must be watchful over, because if not careful, a seed that is on unhealed or untended soil will grow a nasty plant or a nasty rotten tree. So for my young for the people who are listening, especially from my peers or my community, oftentimes enough, I like to use social media as the measuring stick when it comes to this. But when it comes to what are you chasing, what are you chasing? And what are you chasing it for? Are you chasing money? And if so, how much? And why? If it's, am I chasing acceptance? Feeling like I need to be a place in some part of this world, I need to feel like I need to belong somewhere. Is it approval, love, all the things that we should be looking inward from, we're searching outward from? What is the seed? Not necessarily the desire, because desire is not bad. I'd be a fool to tell you that it's wrong to want $1 million. I hope every person on this podcast listening gets as much money as they can out of this world. That being from 1,000 to a million to a billion to a trillion, even further beyond. I hope you break the numeric barrier when it comes to how much money you can allocate. I also believe that within chasing something, you have to stay grounded. It's important to stay grounded. One of the few quotes that I'm going to be using, but one of the quotes I love to think about is a quote from Jim Carrey, and he says that I hope you get everything that you're wanting, everything that you're looking for, and realize it's not enough. Because truly, as you get things that you're looking for, as I look across my desk, I mean, I'm happy. I remember chasing for so long, a college degree, and even to the point where I even was academically suspended for that time being. And I remember during my time going to the school I was at while I was trying to get my grades back up, I remember being asked, well, what are you actually chasing? And why am I chasing it? Is it for them? Is it for performance? Is it to be accepted? Is it to be, maybe if I have the credential, I get to where, or people will listen to me more? But it really came until after I got the degree where I realized, no, I am just as qualified and I am just as worth being listened to and being accepted as the next person. And the metric of measure when it comes to me or your famous celebrity or even you to whoever you hold in high regard, this is a very essential thing to tell yourself, like, no, you are very much qualified and worthy. And I say that to say, whatever you're chasing, please, no matter how good it is, no matter how bad it is, I'd hope it leads you to something that you could obtain, but in the means of obtaining it, I want it to bring joy, peace, rest, find rest in it all. But yes, I say all these things to say the first truth of healing is survival. Now, the second truth is a bit more, requires a little bit more help. We all know how to heal together, collectively, from the church choir to the block party to the family cookout to everything in between. We have turned ordinary spaces into places of collective care. Even our laughter in the face of hardship is a form of medicine. When one of us heals, we open the door for others to heal as well. Being a space for each other, leaning on each other in the hard times. I know in today's day, we are often told we have to be selfish. Selfish within the things that we're chasing. But it's okay. I'm telling you right now, to my brothers and sisters that's listening on this podcast, it's okay to receive, to need help. Because if you don't, and if you're alone, alone is the toughest place to be. To feel like you're alone, because you're truly never alone. That's the I'll dismiss the biggest lie ever told. It may feel like you are alone, but you're never alone. There's always somebody watching you, watching over you, looking after you, even if you may not know it. They're there and they care. Even furthermore, when it comes to community, there's always somebody that understands. Even if we may feel like what we're going through is is far greater than anybody can imagine. Yeah, they understand and they care. But you have to open yourself up to these things and trust, not in man, but trust in the good. Trust and know. And finally, the third truth of healing is revolutionary. Rest, joy, and wholeness are all acts of rebellion against systems that profit from our exhaustion. Our ancestors fought for those freedoms. But what good is freedom if we are too wounded to experience it? Because healing ensures that our fight for justice is not about survival, but about living fully. But think about that for a second. Freedom. What is freedom? I often say, I often hear about people talk about financial freedom. Freedom from systems that put restraints on us or look at us any type of way. Freedom to express. Freedom to know. Freedom to access towards the things that we need, that sometimes the belief is our counterparts have far greater access to than us. And as true as that may be, I would like to pose a different freedom. Freedom to be. Freedom to feel. There's so many roles, so many things that we put our expectations on. Gender roles, division of labor, this amount of things that we often put ourselves through. jumping through hoops and hoops. But how often are you allowed to feel again, to breathe, to feel, to be? Talking to my black men out there and black youth, when is the last time you've cried and were allowed to cry? Think about that. I understand we may talk about being macho, being tough, social media terms, being alpha male, feeling like if we're put enough hours in the gym, if we're muscular, if we're practice enough, or we have enough intelligence, or we fill the space that we don't talk about in our silent times with accolades that far exceed or far that we put so much value in. How often do we allow ourselves to feel those things and sit with them? Because allowing to feel is the greatest feeling in the world. Being able to feel what you're going through, not stay there, but sit a while to process. If someone were to ask you, hey, how are you? Truly, how often has anybody asked you that lately? Not, hey, can you fix something? Can you do something? Can you provide something? No. How are you? Without receiving anything back. I remember watching a video about this basketball player. I forget his name. It'll come to me in a second. But he talked about how he would oftentimes receive help. But after he received help, it became like, hey, so I did this for you. What can you do for me? And it became, yes, Michael Beasley, that's the name. Michael Beasley. And he said how many times that he's been used by people he trusted in. But how I say all that to say, I bring his name up because I want to ask you before I go into my next segment. I really want you to think about this. How often are you allowed to be yourself in a safe space? And truly, how are you doing? Now let's talk about what healing could look like for us today, both personally and collectively. First, remember, healing doesn't always mean sitting in a therapist's office. Though therapy is powerful, healing can be journaling, prayer, meditation, breathing, resting without guilt or struggle, exploring your creative mind, or simply reaching out to a trusted friend. But I also want you to know there are resources available, many designed specifically for Black people. And I'll list them now. Open Path Psychotherapy Collective offers affordable therapy, often between $30 to $60 per session. The Black Mental Health Alliance, Therapy for Black Girls, and Therapy for Black Men connect us with culturally competent providers who understand experiences. Beam, the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective runs community programs and healing initiatives outside of traditional clinics. The Boris L. Henson Foundation, founded by Taraji P. Henson, provides free therapy sessions and creates healing spaces in barbershops, salons, and HBCUs. The Loveland Foundation helps Black women and girls access up to 12 free therapy sessions. Organizations like Black Girls Breathing, Sister Athaya, the, the Confess Project, and the Steve Fund are building innovative, culturally grounded healing spaces for our people. And if you are in crisis, please remember you're not alone. You can always dial or text 988 to be connected to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Help is available 24/7. In closing, let's bring it back to the heart of today's conversation. Healing is resistance. Healing is community care. And healing is necessary for justice and for you. I want to leave you with this. Every step you take towards wholeness is an act of courage. It's a daring act. It's an act that challenges you in every possible way, but it's necessary. Sure, the generations before you have told you, oh, you got to be a man about it. They had to do it, but you don't have to do it the same way. It's the courage to do something different and do something for you. Not because mom said it, not because dad said it, not because the men that you value or hold, or any person that you hold in high regard, they did it their way. And it was suitable for them. But do it for you. Not because I'm telling you to, but because you need it. I mean, it'll feel a whole lot better. Every time you choose rest, joy, or therapy, you're pushing back against systems that were never meant for us to thrive in. You're pushing back against every stereotype, every problem, every issue, anything and everything, every lie that has ever been spoken against you that's told you that you are not qualified or not good enough or not worthy of a safe space to just be. So remember to check out today's Spotify poll on this episode by the question, do you feel like mental health resources are accessible in your community? And join the conversation on Instagram. Because healing isn't weakness, it's a part of the revolution. I've been Reggie Holloway, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Outreach with Reggie. Take care.